and then we also got an event at the Malcolm X Center.
No, I marked my library department.
Take that, and it has the QR code too. And that way you can go, you can see we got an amazing program for Saturday, and then Sunday, closing plenary. You want me to say a couple things?
Yeah, well, I got the question for you that the United States is making a big deal.
Yes.
That the United States voted against Russia and Ukraine 141 to about 30.
Yeah.
And the question is, what was the vote about Cuba?
Well, that's a very good point. The last vote on Cuba was 185 to 2. With, I don't think there was maybe 3 abstentions. So the U.S., of course, is appealing to the to the General Assembly to condemn Russia's invasion, Russian Federation invasion of Ukraine. But of course, they don't talk about how the United Nations General Assembly for 30 straight years has oh, okay. For 30 straight years has condemned the U.S. blockade of Cuba.
Now,
so
what is the basis of the condemnation, sir?
What is the what?
Basis of the condemnation. Tell us about the UN Charter forbidding economic warfare.
That's correct. That's correct. So it's typical two-faced. But the point is that the U.S., the world community, they call themselves, has condemned the blockade for 30 straight years. And if the United States accepts the authority of the UN General Assembly against the Russian Federation invasion of Ukraine, which, by the way, on that vote, Cuba abstained on, as did China, Vietnam, and a lot of other countries in Africa and elsewhere, because, it was did not also condemn the context and NATO expansion, so on and so forth. But the point is that people expressed the overwhelming view of the world that, there should not be violation of legally recognized territorial borders and so on. But the world, even greater majority, has condemned the U.S. blockade. So this is typical hypocrisy. As Malcolm X said, and we're very close to Malcolm X Boulevard here in Harlem, when they say democracy, American democracy is nothing but disguised hypocrisy. So, Joe, I'm going to go back in my warm truck.
Okay. But if you learn anything, let me know.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
Gail Walker, what about her?
Well, everybody's very busy, but I really want you to put the conference on your schedule. We hope you can participate. Belly of the Beast is going to be there. Rosemary Maley, Gail. We got Medea Benjamin. We got.
I'm a big fan of hers.
We got a whole lot of spokespeople. Carlos Lasso's coming up. We got a wonderful delegation from Cuba, the Federation of Cuban Women. It's going to be a great conference, and we're all united. The whole spectrum, groups from the DSA, CP, SWP, all the different groups. We're all united against the blockade, whatever we think about other issues. Thanks, Joe.
All right, hallelujah.
Stuff happening, and then reserve March 11th and 12th, and the evening of the 11th we're going to have a big public rally at Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Center.
Good.
So a lot of stuff happening. Anybody want to say anything before we break up?
One more shot.
Amir, you want to say something?
I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Aaron, can you take a video?
Yeah, I can take a video.
So we can chat. Do the chat that I made.
Hold on a sec.
Harlem to Havana.
Harlem to Havana.
Hold on a sec, guys.
Cuba.
Harlem to
Let us know when to go.
From Harlem to Havana.
Hands off Cuba.
From Harlem to Havana.
Hands off Cuba.
From Harlem to Havana.
Hands off Cuba.
Cuba sí bloqueo no.
Cuba sí bloqueo no.
Cuba sí
Bloqueo no.
Cuba sí
Bloqueo no.
Cuba sí.
Bloqueo no.
Abajo con el bloqueo.
Abajo el bloqueo.
Que viva Cuba.
¡Viva!
Que viva Harlem.
¡Viva!
Que la solidaridad entre los pueblos.
Viva.
All right.
All right, everybody, let me get all the signs back. Thank
I
you.
drove 2 hours for this.
Randy, would you explain why they have the blockade?
Why?
Yeah,
For the record?
yeah.
Okay, wait a minute.
The real reason.
I ain't gonna give you any bullshit. You know, I ain't here for the bullshit. Okay, tell me when to go.
Go.
All right, I'm here to protest the criminal blockade against Cuba by the United States, which despises and wants to smash workers' power in Cuba. And it's a fine example for the rest of the world. And if it wasn't for U.S. imperialism and the blockade, living standards in Cuba would be higher. But I was in Cuba last May for the May Day parade, and it was the first May Day after COVID, which the Cubans tackled magnificently. There was so much joy and enthusiasm about being Cuba and being in Cuba and being a worker that it was just thrilling to see it. It was a gorgeous spectacle. There was like, I don't know, 500,000, 1 million, I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but it was immense. And I had a wonderful time, and I might go back again this year. I have to check my finances. But what I saw there was not great wealth, but equality. And there were no people in the streets begging like you'd see in New York. People who face food shortages because of the blockade, which has actually been increased under Joe Biden, the so-called progressive and friend of workers and unions. The strikebreaker, Joe Biden. We saw that Cuban government was giving people extra food to make sure that there was no starvation, malnutrition. And I was staying with someone who said it's really wonderful to feel like your government cares about you. And here in the States, exactly the opposite is so. You're on your own. You got to fight for a union to have any kind of decent life. And we got to make big changes in this country. We've got to take down capitalism like the Cubans did. And it's a fine example for us to follow. No real unemployment, free health care, free education, and a very aware population that understands world politics and Cuba's big role in the current situations in the world. And I was proud to be there for the 4th or 5th time. It was wonderful. I've been to Santiago a couple of times and Havana a couple of times, and I recommend it to everyone.
Well said. Thank you.
Okay, do I look okay here? All right, I haven't shaved in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's
All right, well, tell me what to do.
well, what's your take on the LaRouche organization?
I encountered the LaRouche organization headed by Lyndon LaRouche back in the 70s, in the early 70s, and they were located right next to the Socialist Workers' Party, which I was a member of at that time, which was about 106th and Broadway, I think. And they had a room next door where they taught large groups of members karate and the use of nunchucks. And we heard them shouting, you know, their charge. Huh, huh. We heard that a lot. They started a thing called Operation Mop-Up, which was to eliminate the left, except for them. And that meant the Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party, everybody. And when they would encounter you in the streets, they would often attack you. Now, when I came to New York, I was here for only 2 or 3 days. Came up from Florida or North Carolina, I forget. Anyway, I went to an action sponsored by the SWP, which I joined, at a candidates forum at Columbia, which was included a candidate of the Communist Party. And the Socialist Workers' Party organized the defense of the candidates. It was more than the CP, but we were quite prepared to deal with anything, and we mobilized a lot of members. And before it started, there's a little bit of commotion, but we were organized right at the front. I was with my great pal Jack Lieberman, who was in front of me, and he stopped the guy from going towards the candidates. He said, "You ain't going nowhere, buddy." Jack is a big guy, big like our friend Amish here. So a few moments after that, I was punched in the back of the head by someone I obviously didn't see. And I hit the floor right away.
Oh my God.
And then a brawl broke out like you wouldn't believe. You never saw a Hollywood movie of a saloon brawl like that. Chairs were flying overhead, ashtrays were flying overhead, people slugging each other. Jack took out one guy, maybe more. I threw chairs at people when I got up. When they got up, I was yelling out, "Jack, Jack." I couldn't hear or see anything because my glasses were knocked off. I didn't know where they were. But incredibly, like a scene out of a Hollywood movie, I forget which one it was, where a guy walked through a massacre by the cavalry of an Indian tribe. I walked through that thing and nobody touched me. It was just unbelievable. I never forget that experience. But the SWP put a bunch of them in the hospital, and we defeated them really good. And we talked to the CP afterwards, and he said, "Thanks for being here, thanks for being here." Then the next day, the Daily World, the CP paper, mentioned the attack, but didn't mention the Socialist Workers' Party, who organized and put ourselves on the line to defend the guy's free speech, the candidate. So that's my most vivid memory of the LaRoucheites. They're crazy people. You look at their literature, some of it is, racist and anti-Semitic, and it's just trash. It's for crazy people and cops. And they admit that they have cops in their organization. And surely some of them were at the confrontation at Columbia. I wouldn't trust them, and I wouldn't go to a rally in Washington where they were part of the program. They're racist and anti-Semites. Psychotics, really. They actually originated from a unification with a drug cult. I forget the name of it. But the guru was on the Upper West Side, and they worked together. What? Newman, yeah, Fred Newman. A crazy psychology cult. A fellow that I knew was in it, and they'd wake you up in the morning and insult you about everything. So that was supposed to make you stronger and overcome your brainwashing by society. Well, it was a cult of lunatics. I wanted nothing to do with it. But they and the LaRouchites worked together for a time. They eventually split. I don't know what happened to them. They formed their own nut party. And what's her name was part of it. She worked with Fulani, yeah, who made a block with Pat Buchanan, the right winger. So that's my story about those guys.
What about lately?
Lately, I've seen them. They tried to infiltrate the Free Julian Assange movement, and I want nothing to do with them. They brought big banners to a small press conference, and I was for not taking them off the mailing list so they don't show up, so people don't associate Assange with a bunch of loons like the LaRouchites. I won't have it, but that's the last I've seen of them.
Oh, they have Linda Sayre?
She was a candidate, and I believe she was the one who spoke in Washington at this so-called anti-war rally, which attracted a number of sincere people who just wanted to protest the war, and many did not know about this left-right alliance. One of the people with the United National Anti-War Coalition, Phil Lowedo, or Wado, I forget. Waledo. He said a lot of people didn't know the stuff about the right-left coalition. I wrote a response to a fellow who promoted it, a union guy, Chuck Slatkin, and pointed out that the largest anti-war movement in this country was the anti-Vietnam War movement, which attracted 1 million people in the streets. That was the largest rally ever in this country. Was that a right-left coalition? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, thank you.